jump through that layer.
Is it hard to get through the layer?
You can't drink through it. You just got to eat it off.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to AP Art History Home Edition. This is just a super short video to give you our final opinions about the three works that you just covered, the three works of domestic architecture. And we're doing so with our Dalgona coffees, which I've never tried before. Do you eat it? Should we have gotten spoons?
You pretty much have to. Yeah, I don't think, you can't drink through it.
Oh, that is bitter. You like this?
It's great, yes. It's like coffee.
I need way more milk.
It's coffee pudding, which is amazing. So I'll be drinking both of those. Should we?
Let's move on. I don't think I like that. Okay. So you looked at Falling Water.
Mm-hmm.
You looked at, that was made by Frank Lloyd Wright. It's outside of Pittsburgh, kind of far outside of Pittsburgh. Yeah. I don't even know if it's
Pittsburgh doesn't even. It's really just Western PA.
It's Western PA. You also looked at Via Savoy, which is by Le Corbusier. Corbusier. I think other architects just refer to him as Corbu, which is like a little in thing. You just rolled your eyes. And that's in France.
I love artists, but they're also the worst people.
And the last one you looked at was House in Newcastle County by Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown, which is in Delaware. So we thought, as a fun little way to round this up for you, that we would play a game that we created. It's a quick game. It's called Demolish, Vacation, and Reside. So we're going to pick one of these places to demolish. We're going to pick one to vacation in, and we're going to pick one to live in. I think you know what game this is based off of. I don't know if I can say the
You don't. Yeah, okay, we don't need to do that. I don't even know what you're talking about. Are we going by residence or are we going by action?
What?
Like, are you going to say the action?
Right. Okay, yes. I'm going to say the action, and we are going to talk about which one we picked for that action, right? So the action being demolish, vacation, or reside. So before we dive into this, we decided to take location out of it because one is in Newcastle County, Delaware, and the other one is like
just
a 45-minute train ride from Paris.
So that alone buys it a lot of esteem in this game, if it counted.
If it counted.
Which it doesn't.
So we took Paris out of the equation, unfortunately. But regardless, moving on. Let's start with vacation. Should we start with vacation, or do you want to go get right into it and start with demolish?
Oh.
Do you want to go in order? Which one do you want to start?
Yeah, what order did you say it in when you started?
I started with demolish, vacation.
Then that's it. Okay, that's the game.
That's the order. Okay, so demolish. What's your pick?
I thought about this a lot. We talked about it several hours ago, and my feelings on the other ones will obviously come out when we talk about the other things. But I think what I'm gonna demolish, in the end, I have to go with my gut, and I have to demolish the house in Newcastle County.
Me too.
Yeah.
Clearly.
It's just not very good.
It's terrible. Oh my gosh. House in Newcastle County. Go ahead. Explain. I won't jump on.
Just to me, I guess it's postmodern, but to me it just seems like a house that is pointlessly decorated. It's a standard operating American house that is pointlessly decorated with just a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. Even the things when you read the explanations for why they're artistic choices, I sort of roll my eyes. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess there should be like an extra panel of A-frame out in front of the A-frame, but like that doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
It's a big nothing.
That's the big problem I have with it, is that architecture is design. And in design, I strongly feel that it should be like the combination of form and function. And this feels like it has left function at the door and is just about like their artistic choices, which I think can be good, but not so much in a place where I want to live. I think if I lived there, I would be so irritated with the place for having like flat columns that don't actually support anything.
Yeah.
And like
columns that don't do anything. I mean, I guess I have a certain amount of respect occasionally for pilasters, but they're not even that, because pilasters are at least decorative.
Yeah. I mean, these I guess are decorative.
But they're not good decorative. Yeah. They're boring decorative, which is the issue.
The other thing, I mean, I guess the interior is fine.
The interior looks like it's something out of like an off-brand fairy tale. Like not the Disney version of it, but the kind
The
at the
DreamWorks
dollar
version.
store. No, not even that.
Not even
The ones at the
DreamWorks.
dollar store where it's like Mary and the Seven Trolls. And then that's the house they live in. It's just got all this pointless sort of, it looks old, even though it's supposed to be new.
The most egregious thing for me is they have this enormous, like, lovely half circle giant window.
Yeah.
I love windows. And then they just put like a thing in front of it. They just covered it up. It's like,
horrible.
why did you
The best thing you could do for that
window?
house, if this version of the game were different, if there were a fourth category called renovate, I would just take that house and just take all the boring, stupid, pointless extra stuff out and off. And then it would just be a normal house, and I'd probably just live in it.
I guess it could have been renovated. We went a little hardcore with Demolish.
I think we both hate that house.
We do hate that house. I hope this doesn't inform your opinion. It might inform your opinion. But anyway.
I don't ever bother saying that. When your teacher says something, it's going to inform your opinion. Even if it makes the student think like, no, that house is better than they're saying, it's still a reaction. It's hard not to.
All right. So clearly we are both demolishing house in Newcastle County. We have had many personal conversations about why the heck that house is even on the list.
Yeah. It's the navigation chart of...
they don't know what navigation chart is.
But they
don't need to know
They should be mad about it.
So we're going to move on now to vacation. Vacation.
This is where you and I are going.
We are going to diverge.
We both knew what we were going to do on this one.
So I would vacation at Falling Water.
I would vacation at the
Via Savoy.
Corbusier, the Via Savoy.
Via Savoy. So I picked Falling Water for vacation because I also know that I could not live there. And I absolutely love Falling Water. We went and visited like 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah. There's an impeccable logic to the way you chose this. I'm going to go against it, but there's a logic to the way you chose
because
this.
I also know that he would hate living in Falling Water. It's so cramped on the interior. I'm kind of
playing the other game.
It's so cramped on the interior. There are like the passages to get from room to room are so narrow that like 2 people can't fit through at once. And you are tall. You've got broad shoulders.
That stuff is all true, but that main living space is what matters most. Just like the room that we are in right now, that is 90% of my life.
Yes.
And that would be 90% of my life there. Yeah. So I don't mind as much. As
you've probably seen from the pictures, the main living space is super open. It's like divided into these lovely sections, and Frank Lloyd Wright also designed all of the furniture in the interior.
Of the hill itself is part of the room, which is incredible.
It is really neat.
There's a ton of outdoor spaces in that house where you can just sort of wander outside and feel like you're in nature, but you haven't even left what is technically your house, which is something that we sort of have in our own home.
It's
that
so
is
beautifully
something
integrated.
I love. Yes.
Just like fully integrated into nature. It is quite lovely. And that's why I chose it as a vacation space, because I know I would get irritated living there with its cramped quarters. And when we first started, I was thinking about location. It's isolated.
It is.
It is. It's rather.
I also really love the small decorative choices in there. The one thing that's unfair about this game for us is we've both been in Falling Water. We have not been in the other 2.
That's true.
The house in Newcastle County might be super cozy if you're in there.
I'm never going
It might be like troll cozy.
I've decided I'm never going there.
But
why do you keep referencing trolls?
Because of the off-brand version of a Disney show that I think that house is
trolls live there.
Not the treasure trolls.
Yeah, I know.
More regular trolls. But
D&D trolls.
Yeah. But I do really love the small details. One of the things I remember most is the one bathroom has these, and many of the places in the house have these corners that are windows.
Yes.
All these little choices that Frank Lloyd Wright made for this family, this magnate who wanted the house, it's a bespoke house.
It is.
Which is a very rare thing.
Yes, it is. It is a bespoke house.
This would be the time to put up the definition of bespoke across the board.
Or just listen to the Kanye West song.
That's the only reason I knew what that word was.
So you would pick, I explained why I picked Falling Water as my vacation and not my house. Why would you pick it? Why would you pick Via Savoy as your vacation and not your house?
Via Savoy feels like a rich person's house. And I do think that there's something to be said for the idea of living in what feels like luxury. But if I'm being really honest, most of the reason I picked it as my vacation is because I felt so strongly about the other two verbs. But this one was basically the remainder of the game.
Yeah. All right. I gotcha. I adore Via Savoy.
I know you do. You want to live in boxes. Boxes on boxes.
But they're open boxes. And it's like lifted off the ground. It's got wide windows whose purpose is to actually let light in.
I'm with you on
instead of having weird features that block the light from coming in. It has a full...
Well, that's a reference to the house in Newcastle County. Yeah. Falling Water doesn't...
No.
It is dim in Falling Water.
It is.
Because of it's a wooded area.
I like light spaces.
Yeah.
And it's got that rooftop terrace, so you have like this entertaining and outdoor space. You can have like a garden. It is, and his quote to go along with it, he's the guy who said, our cat is super interested in this Dalgona coffee. Get down. He said that house is a machine for living in. And I fully agree with that. Like, I want my house to be streamlined. I want it to be efficient and open. I want there to be natural light. I want it to be like adaptable for multiple uses, which Corbusier designed for specifically.
I think in the best of circumstances for me, a house should be like the last living entity of your family, not a machine for living in. When he says a machine for living in, he's absolutely right, because when I look at that place, all I can think of
is utilitarian.
I think of a bunker to survive an apocalypse. Even the way it's lifted off the ground makes it seem like it's so that clawing hordes can't reach where you're standing.
I think my ideal would be like the Corbusier exterior and out layout. But then I want the cozy. I think I could make the interior of it cozy.
Sure, but when I look at I enjoy
everything in fleece and cats
aesthetically, and I think we kind of covered our last two simultaneously because we've been talking about the pros and cons of each. Okay. So my favorite looking houses tend to be elaborate forms of things like that. Victorian American houses with wraparound porches and tall, really ornate banisters.
By that logic, you would pick house in Newcastle County.
Yeah, but the Victorian houses, it's decorative and function. The house in Newcastle County, in theory, would be my favorite if it were executed with what seemed like any sort of consistency. It just seems like a bucket load of ideas that got tossed off of other projects, and it was like, it's like when you just put all the leftovers in one casserole.
It's a dump cake.
Yes, yeah, perfect. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So
Paula Dean, Newcastle County is the dump cake of architecture.
And I think one thing I've come to really appreciate about living in nature is when being in your house doesn't feel... That machine for living in quote is really perfect, and it works. It's a perfect quote because it actually encapsulates what he wants, but it also encapsulates why you might not like it. It just means you might not like it for good reasons. He's not making a house for what I think a house should be. A house should feel homey in that house. I feel like if I lived in that house for 10 years, I would be able to move out of it and it would seem like I was never there. Yeah. Whereas I feel like Falling Water, even when we were in it, even though no one lives there, it felt like someone lived there.
It took on a personality.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting about Falling Water is it's also decorated with a lot of pretty prestigious fine artworks. Like Diego Rivera has work hanging in there, and Frida Kahlo.
Which I also didn't count in my pick, but if I did, it definitely would have only further driven home the point.
I would love to live in Via Savoy because of its proximity to Paris, but we try to take that.
It's got to be context is important in AP art history, but in this one way, we're going to factor out context.
But anyway, those were our picks for Demolish. What was it? Demolish,
Reside, and Vacation.
Demolish, Vacation, Reside. So what I'd like you to do is to make your picks and post them on Google Classroom. I think this Dalgona coffee
I love it.
Is growing on me, maybe. I need a spoon for it. I don't know how people are actually drinking it.
I've kind of worked through it, as you'll see in the video.
Cheers.